Hello everyone, I'm guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. Today we are here with another Fanatics Weekly Review where I go through the top 100 soccer auctions this last week. This week a special 100 episode, so very excited for that. Hopefully you are as well. As always, if you enjoy these and have enjoyed these, do make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and swing it on over to the site. So here we are over on the Fanatics site, notably the lowest I think we've ever seen here in terms of the top 100, which is interesting because it's actually decent towards the top, but I think it's just a lack of volume in terms of higher end cards. You know, we could talk about, I think it's a couple reasons. Primarily, one, there's a lot more flooding, I guess, of just soccer cards in general getting graded, sent to market during the boom and even, years after the boom. Now that we're a little bit beyond that, I think we're back to a more natural sort of state. And in addition to that, I think there's probably less people just selling their collection and probably more content with what they have and just less constant sort of moving of cards from one person to another. I don't know. Would love to hear your thought down below if you have any ideas in regards to this, but I don't think that, we will see some prices that are low, but I do think there are other prices that are doing well, so I don't think it's just a price dropping type of thing, because these cards that we're seeing right here were never really in the top 100 typically. With that said, let's get going though. We'll go through the first couple pages pretty quickly. Here we have this David Beckham 96 card that we see a decent bit in higher grade. We also have a Henrik Larsson from 94 football there. 2014 Cristiano Ronaldo PSA 10, $56, huh? That's quite a sight to see. Of course, at one point in time, that was quite the card in terms of during the booming days when basketball people were hopping into soccer and didn't know anything about anything. So far removed from that, of course, though. Next to that, we have a Kenny Dalglish from 72. Don't think I've ever seen this one before. Pop one of one and higher. And a 73. Johan Cruyff kind of looks like he's yawning there in that Vanderhoot. Above that, nothing too interesting in this. Or I guess you do have a 1902 Geo Smith, which is kind of cool as well. A decent amount of watchers there also. Then above that, we got a Steve Aoki card. Love to see it. Nice Holland black right there. PSA 9 David Beckham Merlins. These have been selling quite a bit, definitely lower than this for, say, BGS 8s, 7s, yada yada. We have a Jeremy Doku rookie, $62 on that out of 75. PSA 10. We have a Kylian Mbappe 2018 sticker along with a black icy foil from Topps 2021 Luka Modric. Really nice looking 61 Panini Calciatore Luis Suarez PSA 5 there, goes for 62 as well. In this row is Zidane from the 96 Mejores Equipos de Europa set, and a PSA 9 goes for $62. We also have this Beckenbauer PSA 8 from the second year with ball, goes for 64 as well. Color Blast of Jadon Shaw. Okay, that's a women's player. I was going to say not really familiar, but that makes sense. PSA 10 of Messi here in a Barca kit, of course, from 2010, goes for 64. And then finally on page 1 here, a couple sticker autos of Didier Drogba along with Xavi, and you also have an immaculate PSA 10 of Erling Haaland. On to page 2, we have a Leaf Batistuta 1 of 1. Okay, I guess that makes sense why that was $72. I saw that initially, I was like, that's kind of high for a Leaf sticker auto, but I guess it's a 1 of 1, so it is what it is. We also have a Scorers Club Honda here. That's a BGS 95 gold, goes for 74. This Pulisic I didn't win. I did win a couple things that didn't even make it into this weekly, so they were pretty cheap to say the least, around the price of grading, which for things that I want was kind of nice. I got a Benzema that didn't have the anomaly on the back, so that was cool. Really early graded one there. This 2016 Christian Pulisic I did take a stab at least when it was a little bit lower. I think this was even a fair price as well, personally, and I'm biased because I do own some of these. This is my favorite of his rookie cards. Generally speaking, I love the US kit. I love die cuts. Also, most people don't, so it's sort of, at least in my opinion, an under-the-radar card, but I understand why, because most people don't like die cuts. I think they're a little different, so I don't mind them. Above that, Uwe Seeler here from Lucha Sport 62. Really nice-looking one there. Always loved that one. We have a 58, but really, I think it's a 59.60 Dennis Law, RIP to him. PSA 8 there goes for $76. Erling Haaland PSA 9 goes for 76 as well. Quite the fall from grace for these Topps finest prize footballers. We'll talk more about that as we go. There's been a fall from grace for a lot of these cards. The Erling Haaland foosball here goes for 79 as well. Took a peek at that just to go ahead and see where it's going. I kind of knew, but yeah, it's had a rough couple years here. When we start, it's at 260 2 years ago, and it's now down to 79. Not a great look, and just generally, I think cards that matter are doing pretty good. I think cards and stickers that don't matter aren't doing great. And not to say that this one doesn't matter, but with Erling Haaland, he has a ton of rookies, and he has some really cool numbered stuff, and so a sticker for a 2019 player doesn't really get a lot of love. Stickers in general in Modern basically get no love. Like, after this Erling Haaland, I really couldn't name you another sticker that's prominently sought after by almost anyone. I don't really see a lot of them posted. I'm sure they're out there somewhere. But, in my mind, Mbappe was sort of the last sticker that mattered. And Haaland, carries the torch a little bit, but obviously not carrying it too well. Now, in general, Haaland and Mbappe stuff has continued to fall. We'll talk about that as we continue moving forward through this auction block. Alex Morgan, PSA 10 here, $81. A PSA 10 Zidane from 2002 Estras does 84 there. Look that one up just because we've seen those go, and just sort of actually a better price on this one than the prior two, but it is down from the initial sales back here, closer to 200 initially. There was a flood of those that got graded, and they've been now sort of brought to auction slowly and surely over time, so those have dropped. Another PSA 10 Panini Messi goes for $86. You also have a 36 Gallagher Dixie Dean that goes for $88. Above that, Jude Orange goes for $91 in a PSA 10. You have this Carlos Tevez. It says rookie PSA 10 Pop 103. I can't confirm rookie or not. I'd like to think that there might be something earlier, but at the same time, I have no information in regard to that, so I'll just take Fanatic's word for it. Dangerous thing to do, of course, as we know, but I will do just that. So, Emiliano Martinez, out of 10, PSA 8 here of the Gold Gold Breakaway, goes for 103 from 2022. Of course, World Cup winning year, sort of cool in that regard. Obviously not a true gold, but, it's still gold, still out of 10. Then we have an Iniesta post-playing days, 2022, Topps Chrome Club Competitions Golazo PSA 10 that goes for 105. You got a dual Messi and Kaká patch that goes for 105 as well, along with a Baresi PSA 6 that goes for 108. Decent price on that one compared to some in the past. I remember, a 7 at some point being around that price, so it's, moved up a little bit. Guardiola auto here goes for 110, and that's also out of 10, not incredibly expensive, at least compared to some of the other, sort of post-playing days autos that we see. Of course, it's a manager as well, but kind of cool, at least in my mind. We have a 2006 PSA 10 Benzema. I checked the back of that. This does sort of have the printing error that, at least to me, seems fake, but I do want to state that, PSA, at least from my understanding, isn't like buying these up and getting them off the market or paying out on them. So maybe I could be entirely wrong and these are actually legitimate. As always, we talk about it. I always say I'm not going to show it, and then I just show it anyways. PWCC back in the day, you would never, like the first 15 foot stickers of Benzema that sold on PWCC, you never saw this little ball icon. And also, I looked at the other version compared to this one, and the back on this one is so much more pixelated. Like, you can see clearly everything, like all of the little details. Like, there's white space between everything. When I looked on, I'll go open up the one I bought just for an example. This was one of my wins of the night, $31 for this early graded Benzema. And I, paid a little over probably what comps are for an 8 just because it is early graded and I do trust that it's authentic. But when you go look at the back here, as we'll see, it doesn't have this sort of anomaly in the foot icon that you can see up there. This one has a couple extra soccer balls for some reason. This one does not. And also when you look at sort of the gradient in the background, it's a lot smoother in terms of the color, particularly behind this 180, like the background, the grayish background. Over here, it's a lot whiter, it's a lot more defined. To me, it very well could be just a different printing, because say, for instance, the Este Messi rookie does have different printings. It has a couple of them, but typically when I see these different printings, to me, it's definitely a sort of a warning or a red flag of some sort. Again, I don't think PSA's really done a whole lot with these, so I'm not sure. Maybe it is a different printing, but all to say that early on when these were getting graded, they were all like 7s, 8s, maybe 9s, barely any 10s. And then once these copies started coming out, tons of 10s. And so for me, that's a little suspect. I think it's been theorized by some people that maybe the better looking 10s were a part of like sealed albums and stuff like that. And, so they came in better condition. Ultimately, I don't know. I like to err on the side of paying less and probably getting a more authentic version, so I'm going to do that. All to say, 110 on this, make of it what you will. If it's authentic, I think 110 isn't a crazy price, but at the same time, if it's fake, it is a lot of money for a fake. So, but the nice thing is PSA pays out if these are proven fake. So over time, that would play out one way or the other. We then finish out page 2 here with a nice Lirati from 1927. Don't know a whole lot about the player, so I can't add much, but it does have 20 watchers. The set itself has been doing amazing numbers as of late. Some of the more prominent players going for multiple thousands, so, presumably not as prominent of a player here. Sapphire Erling Haaland, I do remember the days of PSA 10s, probably like a year ago. It wasn't even that long ago, but PSA 10s in these auction blocks would do 800 every single time, and now a 9.5 does 138. This 4 Club and Country, this is the country version of 2017 Nobility Cristiano Ronaldo in a 10, goes for $140. Look this up, just because you don't see them at all, really, and not a crazy price. I guess the last 10 sold for $111, so it's a little better than that. I do believe, okay, actually the last 10 was $170, but that was a best offer. Of course, you're always going to get better numbers on a best offer. It stuck out to me that there was only a few sales last year for this, and I mean, it's like 2 or 3 sales a year for the most part. Pretty cool card, and seemingly not a crazy price in terms of if you're the buyer there looking for one of those. Starting off on page 2 here, you have a choice of sticker autos. You can get a Heung-min Son for $138 there, the Premier League choice. We have a Martin Skriniar along with a Marquinhos out of 10, 2023 Inception, goes for $138. And a Green Wave Vinny Jr. for $144 in a PSA 9. Above that, pretty cool set from 78. This is a Rivellino in a 2 that goes for $144. We also have an Henry out of 19 Pink Wave. Interesting one there. And a 10 goes for $168. This Lewandowski fake rookie, really a second year, but for some reason labeled as a rookie. Of course, you know, Fanatics gonna Fanatics, but yeah, that goes for $168, which feels like a pretty solid price, I would say. 38 watchers on that. I do wonder how many of those watchers are there because of the rookie labeling. I find it hard to believe there'd be almost 40 watchers for a second-year Lewandowski, but maybe I am mistaken there. You don't see him too much, to be fair, but we also, honestly, at this point, you don't even see the rookies pop up that much on Fanatics, but they used to be hot and heavy for a good while on here. Above that, orange Kylian Mbappe Sapphire goes for $186. I believe, yeah, I did check this just to see, you know, only a couple sales a year here on this one, and not a crazy price. The last 10 actually went for $300, again on best offers, so you got to take that into account. This 9 did do 81, so if you do the 9 to 10 multiplier, this should be closer to 250-ish. So I think that this was a good relative deal. Sapphire, especially early Sapphire sets, super, super tough. I mean, they were expensive sets, and you only got 2 parallels. You didn't get any autos. You didn't get anything. So you would have thought at the time hitting an Mbappe out of 50 was a pretty good hit, and I don't think that that would have even paid for like a third of the box or half of the box for sure. So, and a PSA 10 as well. So I think that's a good buy if you're into that sort of stuff. I do kind of like Sapphire. It has a lot of what people sort of want out of a modern card. It looks good. It's got a short parallel checklist. There's only a fair few of them, and it's fairly consistent. So I think that that was a decent price if you're into that. 2018 Optic Gold Vinyl. This is a 1-of-1 John Stones. It goes for nearly $200 there. And then we have a 32 Dixie Dean De Buculaire that goes in a PSA 9 for $192, pop 1/6, none higher. Above that, Diego Luna, 1-of-1 from Topps MLS Superstars, Final Boss. That's an interesting insert, but goes for $192 nonetheless. We have a Luis Monti from, it says circa 1942, which is kind of odd. I don't know why it wouldn't just say 1942, but nonetheless goes for $210 in a PSA 5. You then have a PSA 8 Kylian Mbappe for $210 as well. We'll talk about those later, but those have not been doing all too well as of late. Although Mbappe's sort of come around a fair bit. Then we have a 1-of-1 Christian Pulisic from Topps Total Football. I don't think I've ever seen this card not in this 1-of-1 parallel version, so it doesn't really stand out to me, but 1-of-1's always going to get a decent price, does $210. We have a 2003 Cristiano Ronaldo, quote-unquote rookie. Of course, not a rookie. Goes for $222, though. This one I didn't win. I took a stab at it just because it was really low and kind of a fun one. Like, obviously, I'm not a huge Lewandowski guy, but this was sub $100 going into extended bidding. And for me, an out of 10 color match, Topps Chrome Bundesliga, Lewandowski, one of the best strikers in the Bundesliga of all time. Pretty cool release. For under $100, I was going to take it all day. PSA 10 as well, which would assume a raw is like 30 or 40 bucks. So I was about it. It did end up going to $252, which was a pretty good sale considering this same exact card, same exact cert had sold, I think it was last year, for $150. So a decent boost up over the last sale on that one. We have an Imperia Calcio Pele, and a PSA 2 from 63 goes for $264. This is down a fair bit. The last couple sales were a little bit higher. You have one here for $324. You got another one for $288. If we go back like a year or so, these were a lot higher at one point in time. A PSA 2 back here, nearly $700 early last year. And that has been something I've heard from, more knowledgeable vintage folk than me, that 60 Peles have been pretty expensive. And, generally there's just a lot of them. So I think that that's sort of what we're seeing, is that Pele has a ton of stuff in the 60s, and even though that this is a good sticker in my opinion, there's so much out there that it kind of eventually is probably going to outpace demand. Now maybe eventually that turns, but at some point or another, when basically anything 60s Pele was hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars. I mean, nowadays you can almost get rookies for hundreds, sometimes thousands, surely. So, the trade-off is there, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here. I do really think this is a nice sticker. Don't own it, would like to one day, so maybe that'll be on the docket. 2023 Lamine Yamal rookie out of 20, PSA 9 goes for $288. That, it's Obsidian, so it is what it is. But just to say, at one point in time, we were seeing Mega Cracks base cards doing this price, and now we're seeing numbered out of 20 Panini cards doing this. So just food for thought. 2023 Lionel Messi out of 25 goes for $288 over here. Topps Chrome MLS SP. Above that, a 96 Thierry Henry and a PSA 8 goes for $288. We've been seeing a lot of these sort of 90s Panini cards, especially this set in particular. That 2002, what is it? I think the Estrella set from 2002, we also see a fair bit. Some of these, if you're into this type of stuff, I would highly recommend paying attention to pop counts, to gem rate, and seeing if a horde of them does get listed. If you start to see one or two get listed, maybe see if there's more out there. And if there is, it's probably not going to do too well, just simply because of supply and demand. This Henry is sort of, taken a big hit because of that type of stuff, I guess. If we look here earlier this year, and I was sort of surprised earlier this year because of this type of stuff. Like, I had seen that a decent amount of these were graded, and it was still going for $1,000 in a PSA 8. And now we went to $720, $780, $499, $251. eBay's always going to do a little bit less, but it is a good indicator of if people are really out there hunting it. I think eBay's a good indicator. But then we see a PSA 8 here, goes a little higher, and now we went from $1,000 to $288 just in a year's time. And, I think it's important to note that type of stuff because basically anywhere in soccer that is an ultra-modern numbered card, you do run that risk. And especially, I think, more so in 90s. We've seen that happen a lot. Now, on the other side of this coin, you're going to say, that's a huge drop, bud. You drop from 1,000 to 300. That's big. But pre-boom, honestly, even in 2021, you could find these raw for like $20, $40, something like that. So a PSA 8 being $300 now is still a decent price, but it is a lot lower, obviously, than some of the other comps that had come in earlier last year. Next to that, you have a Stamp Pele, PSA 10. Here, this is kind of interesting. I'd personally rather have the Imperial Calcio. I know that this is a PSA 10, but it is also a stamp, so, $348 on that seems kind of high, but that is, at least from what I assume, it's just registry chasing, and people do that, so I can't blame them. Mini Diamond Lamine Yamal out of 50, PSA 10 goes for $360, 2023 Topps Finest. I will have a video later this week on Lamine Yamal and sort of the numbered cards and how many are potentially out there. I'm still deciding whether or not I even want to go through and try to add them all up. I started, and I am very not interested anymore, so we'll see. But one way or another, this one goes for $360. Above that, you have a Messi rookie here for $360. I thought that was a really good price, PSA 6 on this. I looked it up just because, usually I don't because I know what they go for, but I just wanted to visually illustrate it. This goes for, I guess there was another one. Oh, maybe this is the Campione instead of the Campio, whatever. You get the idea. The sale last night was essentially the same. This is $376. That was $360. But yeah, there are some high sales here. Don't get me wrong. Those are probably bins on eBay. But you did see some lows here at $275 and $250. So it's definitely up from those. What I also wanted to point out was there's some PSA 8s that would go in this range every now and then. Or not in this range, but close to it. Like over the last couple of years, there was definitely times where you could get an 8 for $580, $516, $495, and so obviously it's $125 more, but the 6 is near about what an 8 was doing, and this is on auction, so pretty impressive sale, I would say. What is not impressive are these two sales right next to each other, and just a fair warning, again, I hate harping on Lamine Yamal. I say I hate doing it. I hate doing it from the perspective of, I know there's a lot of people out there that have Lamine Yamal, they want to sell Lamine Yamal, they want to buy Lamine Yamal, whatever it is. There's tons of people that love Lamine Yamal at the moment, and so they don't want to hear me say this, and I don't want to, make people upset or ruin their day or whatever it is, but I do feel some sort of obligation to say, like, Haaland and Mbappe, sort of the other guys of this era, and probably definitely more proven than Lamine Yamal over a long stretch of time. And you can see here that Kylian Mbappe's PSA 9, the sole rookie he has, is going for $360. And this Erling Haaland actually struck me. A purple Erling Haaland numbered 2019 Finest goes for $384. Actually look back at sales, I guess first here we have the Mbappe, as you can see, down 57% over the last couple of years in a PSA 9 grade. Erling Haaland as well, down quite a bit. Actually, compared to recent sales, it's not terrible. This PSA 9 went for 420. But if we go back, last year, November-ish, PSA 9 here was 801. You have another PSA 9 in October that was 1,000, and now a BGS 9 is going for under 400. Not great results there for some of the prospects, at least of today. Another Kylian Mbappe there for near about 400. You have this Messi that goes for 400 as well. We've seen a lot of these go. I do wonder why these keep doing as good of a number as they're doing. I think it has something to do with that facsimile auto. People probably just think it looks good, but also might be, kind of thinking that it is authentic. I feel like you get that from time to time, but these have sold a lot. So it also does say auto in it, which is, kind of and definitely misleading. It's not a real autograph, but whatever. 1938 Sindelar, Nil Princess Ramona. So this is the Ramona back. These are the more plentiful of the Koenigs. And as you can see there, you can see the red on the bottom. That's how you know. PSA 4, the one thing here is it does say pop 1 of 1, which is not really true. PSA has some issues where they have a few different areas of their site that go to Nil Princess Ramona backs. Like some of them are labeled as like Ramona back, some of them are labeled as Nil Princess Ramona back, and then some of them aren't even labeled as at all. They're just like in one general pop. So I did some math. I think this is actually a pop 1 of 5 too higher if you add them all together. So, and that's just for this back. There are also solo backs. There's also 08 backs. And so I think this is kind of misleading. But I don't think it did a crazy price because of that. Because honestly, this is around the ballpark of what I was expecting on it. Maybe even a little light potentially compared to, I think, an eBay sale we saw lately. I think there was a 3 that did around this price. And so a 4 does that over here. Moving on up, we have a San Giorgio Pele here from 63 and a 2.5 grade that does 432. Didn't strike me as a crazy high price. I really like the colors on this one, almost too much. Sometimes, I like good colors, but sometimes they're almost too nice where I start to wonder. Especially a more recently graded one. Also has a blank back as well. One of my favorite looking Peles in terms of picture color. I just think it's pretty outstanding. Next to that, we have an Optic Cristiano Ronaldo Gold out of 10 that does 468. I felt like this was a pretty decent price if you're into this type of stuff. His 2018 Optic in a PSA, I want to say PSA 9, or maybe a PSA 8, did recently like 800 to 900, so you get a decent discount for getting a 2021 item. But I do think an Optic Gold out of 10 looks pretty good for Ronaldo. And in terms of this card in particular, I think it was the lowest sale ever for this card. Then we have an Iniesta PSA 10 Estrellas from 2002. This is, again, another example, sort of like the Henry, where, and I mentioned this in a video back in the day, it was sort of a pretty controversial video and one that ended up being majorly annoying for me, but nonetheless, I did talk about how 15 of these were graded. It was a pop 5 at one point in time, and then 15 10s came out in one submission, and it became a pop 20 overnight, practically. And so if we look at the prices, that's going to mimic that. So 2022, 4,500, 2022, 4,800. The crazy part here that I don't understand, and it makes me feel kind of weird about the whole situation, is that then the next year, you end up having a sale here for 840, a huge drop, a massive drop. Now, to be fair, it's on Golden, people might not have seen it, but then after 15 of them get graded, the very next comp, when it's a pop 20, not a pop 5, goes for 3,800. And apparently that got paid. I'm pretty sure the guy that owns these Iniestas said it got paid. If I had to be cynical, I would say just because something gets paid doesn't mean there isn't something going on there. But nonetheless, goes for 4 times, almost 5 times the last comp, which is interesting. Then it falls pretty drastically to 1,500, 900, 800, 600, and now we're at 460. So it has continued to ratchet down. There was a decent amount of time between these last 2 sales, but nonetheless, it still continued to ratchet down. We'll see if that happens even more so, because I think we've only seen like 5 or 6 of these sell since the big sort of submission of them. Presumably, there's maybe 10 more out there that could be sold. So we'll see where it lands. 468. I mean, it seems like a decent price, but at the same time, I looked up his Monday Chromo. There's only been 1 sale of a PSA 10 Monday Chromo. And it did a pretty good price, but I think that was back in 2022, so I don't know what that would go for nowadays. Me personally, at this point, I'd probably feel more comfortable with the Monday Chromo, and it just makes me wonder, there's only been 1 PSA 10 Monday Chromo sale in 2-3 years, and there's been 10 of these. I thought stickers were supposed to be harder, both to get unstuck and also in gem mint condition. I know the Monday Chromos have bad printing quality, but man, to see so many 10s of a sticker, just kind of crazy. Then we got a couple Man City cards here. Julian Alvarez out of 5. Red, PSA 9 goes for $516 from Topps Chrome 2022. You have an Immaculate Erling Haaland sticker auto, a Splendid Immaculate that goes for $528 and a PSA 10. Then you have a green treble. Thomas Muller, PSA 9 goes for $528. Pop 1 of 2, 1 higher. I was sort of surprised that there was a 10 there, but I guess definitely possible. Treble's typically hard to grade. When we compare to other sales of the treble, green Muller, we can see that it initially was $800 back when sort of the treble boom was happening. Then it was a little under $700. Then we got a couple $300 sales in here, both at the same time, 2 different copies, and then this one goes for $528. So I don't know if this was one of the copies that sold raw. It could be a good sale if that's the case, but at least grade adjusted, I think that this is probably one of the lower sales because a 9 from treble is really hard to get. So I'd say it's probably, if you assume raw, I would think that that's 200 to 300 probably, but at the same time, hard to do. I was sort of surprised. I thought there was going to be more watchers on this, only 24 watchers, which is one of the lowest ones from the front page here. I was under the impression there were more people sort of watching the treble set, but maybe Muller and maybe even the green in particular doesn't get as much love. Above that, Jude Bellingham stained glass in a 10 goes for $528. We have a Donruss Messi that goes for $564 and a PSA 9. I don't know if that's a rerun. I know we saw one of those go recently, but it's a pretty recent product, so I wouldn't doubt that there just could be multiple selling. This Mundo Deportivo R9 in a PSA 7 goes for nearly $1,000. Decent amount of watchers on there as well, nearly 50. Above that, we got a Pele record that goes for $960 in a PSA 6. We also have a Vecchi Garincha in a 2 that did $990. That seemed like a fair sale, probably. There have been ones that have pushed this price as well in the past, but there have also been ones, we saw one last week that went under $200. It was a pretty beat-up one, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to eye appeal. I think this one looks pretty good. It's a little dark compared to some of the other ones, but I don't mind that necessarily, but I don't think it's the best 2 you're going to find by any means. It also doesn't have an eye appeal sticker. We then have a 2019 Cristiano Ronaldo out of 7 Obsidian Auto for $1,100. Then we got a couple tie-dyes with a Vanderhoot Cruyff smack dab in between. The Ronaldo does a little bit more, but the Ronaldo is a PSA 10, of course. The Messi is a BGS 9.5, both in international kits, so a pretty cool one to see there. Similar watchers as well. The Messi is a quad 9.5 if we go and look at it, so it is, at least for BGS standards, probably a pretty good grade. You're not looking at a min gem or anything like that, so presumably that could cross if you're into that type of stuff. And then the Vanderhoot Cruyff PSA 8. This was actually a good sale compared to some of the recent ones. The lowest sale we can find here is $1,025. There's actually $990 back in May. If we go back even to earlier this year, it actually was a bit more expensive. You can easily get into the 2s and then $3,000 if you go back to 2022. If you go all the way back to the beginning of this, you can find a $17,000 sale. Now that was back in the day where you couldn't find high grades of this. Over time, you've been able to find a lot more higher grades of that. I think it's a mixture of 1, better removal strategies, but also 2, PSA not really catching up on some of the removals and not really caring. So because of that mix, it has tanked massively. But since sort of the bottoming, or at least perceived bottoming at like $900, it's come up, nice 50% or so. And getting our way into the top 6 here, we start with none other than Kenan Yildiz. 1 of 1 here from Topps Chrome Euro. Goes for $1,530, a 1960s throwback, which is kind of odd, but nonetheless, $1,500 for that 1 of 1. Next to it, we have a Lamine Yamal Finest 2023 Red Auto out of 5. PSA 9 goes for $2,010. And then we have a 2020 Immaculate Sapphire Erling Haaland Rookie PSA 9 out of 25. This is labeled as a rookie. It's also 2020 from PSA's grading. I have seen a Beckett slab where they put it as 2019, 2020. This is probably one of the more egregious delayed releases from Panini. At least from my experience, this was pretty clearly after I had already been in the hobby for a little bit, so there was no way that this was really 2019. Nonetheless, got the rookie shield on it, so, you can class it as a rookie if you so please. Did look up comps since I figured there would be some, and there was a sale last year for $3,400 down to $2,000 now, so that's, almost around about 40% haircut there. If we go earlier, I guess there was a 9 also that had gone for $2,500, so not so bad compared to that one. And back in early 2022, it was closer to $6,000, so obviously Man City and Haaland not having the best year, but, compared to what you would have expected out of Erling Haaland, I feel like he's done pretty well for himself. Nonetheless, market doesn't seem to care, generally speaking. And then finally, we end off with the top three here, all three of the GOATs you could expect. Well, I guess this has some extra GOATs in there on the far left-hand side, but we start with the Cristiano Ronaldo 2017 Immaculate Collection Jumbo Platinum 101 patch and a PSA 6 slab. The grade probably not helping it all too much, but really nice looking card. If you do turn it over, it is a player-worn patch, so that is probably not what you want, but at the same time, it looks really nice. So if you're just going for aesthetics, I think that is a pretty fun one at that. But if you want the game worn, obviously not going to get it there. So they even have player worn Portugal crest patch in the description, which is interesting. They even added the player worn. So next to it, we have a 2023 Lamine Yamal field level gold PSA 10 that goes for $7,200. Field level gold's always going to be a pretty important card for a player, and of course, rookie year Lamine Yamal going to be all more important to the general market. When we go and look, there have been sales for this one in the past. So 2 raw sales, $2,000 and $3,700. This one's taking a second to load, but you get the idea. $2,000 here, $3,700 here. Combine those, you know, $2,800-ish. Multiply that times 3. It's around the price that we're looking at here. So this didn't seem like a bad sale in particular. $7,200, probably a pretty good sale if you're just looking off the general comps from before. And then finally, the MSN. Here we have the 1-of-1 Superfractor Triple Auto of Lionel Messi, Neymar, and Luis Suarez. Not in the MSN order, but nonetheless, $30,000 on 33 bids. So pretty big one there. You know, me personally, I don't bid on this type of stuff, so it doesn't really matter what I think. We did see the Haaland, Ronaldo, and Messi that went probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago at this point, and it initially sold for like $120,000, and then it got brought back to market about a year later, and it had sold for like $36,000, I want to say. That's sort of the number in my head. So this is around the same price as that one. Would you rather have a MSN or a Haaland, Ronaldo, Messi? I mean, personally, MSN seems a bit cooler, but at the same time, I always wonder with these types of things, like, you can basically make them every year, and this is the Topps Chrome one, but you could even have them in different sets if you really wanted to. So me personally, I think that $30,000 seems like a pretty hefty number. I mean, we don't see many $30,000 sales in these weeklies. I could see why this one does it. I mean, it's a pretty fun card, don't get me wrong. People love one-of-ones, modern stuff, autos as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like that stuff too, but always with the caveat that Topps can make more of this stuff and very likely will, especially when they sell for $30,000. So very good sale there. Would you rather have that card or practically everything else in this page? Take your pick. I guess, to be honest, looking at everything else on this page, nothing's really a standout to me, so yeah, maybe you do take the first one. Looking at next week, there are definitely some standouts. We start with 2 field-level golds, a Ronaldo and an Mbappe. Mbappe rookie as well. I do think, also in regard to the video I was teasing earlier about Lamine Yamal, select field-level Kylian Mbappes don't get a lot of love. The gold out of 10, pretty big-time one. Also the gold NBA sticker for whatever that's worth. Mega Cracks Cristiano Ronaldo next to it. We got a Mega Cracks Messi as well there, along with the 1-of-1 Topps foil that I believe is a rerun. We've seen that one go before. Another Messi beneath that. Kaboom Neymar, a record of Pele. Didn't mean to click on that. Got an Estampas, a TTT, and a PSA 5 super high grade there. PSA 9 OC rookie of Ronaldo. Ton of goodies in next weekly, so hopefully you're looking forward to it. I know I am. As always, if you enjoy these videos, do make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. Anything you thought sold high or low, or maybe something you snagged, would love to see in a comment down below. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, as soon as we go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.